You wanna play a little game?
In the beginning, there was nothing. But then, a flash of light, and all came to be. The universe, galaxies, stars, planets, the trees in the forest, the grass on the plains. And, with all of this, the Beatles were making music. So here's the thing about Beatles fans. They actually believe that. They think from the beginning of time, the Beatles were just there. They think that the Beatles were always making music. They believe that they were the first band, maybe even the last band to ever exist. They're a wacky bunch. We gotta be really careful what we say because they may have found their way into this video. So gotta be careful. Now here's what you need to understand about the Beatles. You can dislike their sound, that's fine, you know, that they're an old band, music's been through a lot since then, but you cannot deny the massive global influence they've had on music as an industry and as an art form, as well as the concept of being a band, right? Music would not be what it is today without them. Pretty much that's an objective fact. And I do believe Halloween finds itself in a similar boat. Or should I say, in a similar yellow submarine? No? Well, anyway. Now this does include Halloween in on some of the pros and cons of being a cornerstone classic, just like the Beatles face. Now, like most of my mornings, we're gonna start off negative and pessimistic. Were the Beatles the first to play their genre with their sound? No. Were they the first global music phenomenon? No, sir. But don't tell Beatles fans that. They get pissed off. If they ask you if they were, you gotta say yes, or they will shoot you in the toe. For them, the Beatles are the first, the final, the only, the almighty, but that's just not the case. Before them, we had Elvis, who the Beatles themselves claim that they would not exist without. We had Chuck Berry. We had Jerry Lee Lewis, who apparently married one of his cousins, so let's not talk about him. Now, a lot of people point to Psycho as the first slasher, and while I'm not 100% on board with that label, the film definitely played its role in launching creepy killer movies to its popularity. Now, for my money, we're looking at probably Grass Christmas. We're looking at Black Christmas. Probably is one of the first I'd say is in the line of the slashers, or maybe even the GOAT, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. One of those is playing the part of Elvis. Halloween, playing the part of the Beatles, is credited for pioneering a lot of things it actually doesn't. Just like a certain band that we might be able to reference, but I don't know. According to some critics, Jamie Lee Curtis's breakthrough performance as Laurie Strode was the start of the final girl trope, where it's, one last heroine surviving against the killer without a male rescuer swooping in. So, a couple things wrong with that. Michael Myers, an ominous shape in a mask, was not an original concept either. Gotta point out again, Leatherface, my boy. He did the zero dialogue with the mask thing before, and he wasn't the first either. First aside though, Halloween isn't a flawless masterpiece. And that's another thing you are outcast for saying about the Beatles. Michael Myers is supposed to be this larger-than-life, ghost-like demonic figure, just like an unstoppable train of terror. But then you see him driving in a car like some kind of human, some kind of mortal. He's being a silly little goofy guy in the ghost costume. He's struggling in situations where brute force really should have prevailed. It feels a bit like an inaccuracy to his character, which is all the more troubling given that this is his debut appearance. Halloween is often put on this pedestal for being the Halloween slasher flick, It's hard not to attribute a lot of that to its name. It's called Halloween. You can't get more on the dot than that, right? So would Halloween still be the long-lasting staple it is today, if not for its name?
I really can't say, but yes.
For one thing, the score. Yeah. the haunting presence of Michael Myers. While imperfect, it's still strange and stoic enough to prevail regardless. The ability for the killer character to instill fear without violence is something, up until that point, pretty unique to the film. I don't think suspense-reliant horror films like It Follows would exist if not for Halloween. Certainly not in the capacity that they do now. I also like how Halloween furthers the concept of safe spaces, not actually being safe. In fact, the more safe a place is supposed to be, the more at risk the characters seem to be. Out in the suspiciously vacant suburban streets, characters are only spooked and scared and stalked. But within the supposed safety of their cars, kitchens, bedrooms, and finally closets, is where they're confronted and murdered. You'll find this concept has evolved as time's gone on, where filmmakers will toy with settings and situations that are supposed to be, quote-unquote safe, and subvert them to be anything but that. While A Masked Killer was far from a first, this one's void, white bleakness definitely inspired villains to follow. Leatherface's Leatherface clearly displays his themes and personality, but the mask of Michael Myers betrays no emotion or intent, which is what we find to be a popular pick by films that follow. It's anonymous and autonomous? Is that the word ominous, there it is. It's just like John Lennon once said. Take it from Skia. Halloween is really cool. And I think that really goes to show just how important of a film Halloween is. Far from original and not exactly perfect, it got more than enough right for it to deserve its title and acclaim. Yeah, just like the Beatles. Alright, I threw you a bone. Please don't swat me.